So our first guest is Sha-En, and she's actually a two-time TEDx speaker and the founder of Happiness Scientist. A positive psychology practitioner, she has spoken to over 30,000 people in Singapore and the region, sharing science-based strategies to help uplift their lives. But despite the title Happiness Scientist, just like anyone else, Sha-En has days where she feels frustrated and tired. From juggling the responsibilities of being an entrepreneur, a mother of 2 kids, a daughter to elderly parents, and a wife. So today, she's going to share with us her own daily practices of how she copes with the demands of business and home, especially as a mother, and how she manages conflicting emotions between balancing filial piety and respecting your boundaries, which I think is really relatable. So without further ado, can you give a hand to Sha-En? Oh my gosh.
I just sit down.
Yeah, you just sit down.
Hi everybody.
So I'm really happy to have you on the show, Sha-En. So just want to share, right? When I first thought of being a speaker, which is like 2 years ago, Sha-En was someone that I thought was super cool because, you know, she speaks on stage and she's a female speaker, and I think we need more female speakers in this world. And when I met her at Coffee Bean at Serangoon, I think, somewhere I can't remember.
I think Bishan.
Bishan. I was so surprised. I wasn't super surprised, but it was just like a nice surprise to see how down to earth you are. Like, you're just a human. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can just like have copy with this friend. But she's so cool. Like, she's a certified speaking professional. She's so good at what she does. And you're making so much impact in your life. And that is why today we want to see the other side of the coin.
I'm actually feeling very nervous about that.
Okay.
Like feeling the layers.
Can we all do this? It's okay to feel nervous. We're here for you. Okay, so we're gonna go right in, right? How many hats do you wear in your life?
Let's see, I'll count. I've got mother, wife, sister. I think many of us have similar hats. Business owner, daughter, I don't know, boss. I've got 2 team members, so now I'm like a boss. I think maybe that's 6. But yeah, I guess there are a lot of similar roles, but at the same time, you know, they all kind of come together sometimes all at once.
Yeah, I think that, you know, one thing about having many hats, as we grow older, when you go into your career, you have a partner, you have family, you start being quote-unquote responsible for more people. Or rather, the things that you do and say will have repercussions not just to you, but the people that, you know, you're responsible for, like the people that you're associated with. And with that comes conflicting emotions.
Yes.
So we want to ask you this question, which is the question that we asked the audience. What is the biggest thing weighing on you this season?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is I'm really struggling with a lot of family-related issues, things that have been ongoing for 30 years. You know, baggage, things that you carry on your shoulder that maybe weighed 1 kilo at the start. Then after 30 years, they weigh how many kilo, I don't know. But it just feels very heavy, and I think it's just the conflict between wanting to fulfill my duty as a good daughter, good sister, good whatever, like good everything, right? I think maybe in our society we are kind of saying that we need to be good, whatever that means. And then the conflict and struggle between me trying to just be me. I'm just a person trying to live my life, and because of what I've studied in positive psychology, I became very clear that I need to take care of myself. But then at what cost? If I be that good person, then at what cost? And
so, I mean, you mentioned about like having some, you know, issues at home that is kind of like weighing you down, and having to balance between like filial piety as well as like your own boundaries, your own mental health.
So I mean, for the past 3 months, the question that keeps asking my mind is, how do I... Okay, let me just give an example. Like, I want to be good to my parents because obviously they have given me life and they have started me off, but at the same time, they've also caused me a lot of pain. Words that they have said, constant squabbling, threatening to divorce multiple times, but never... You know, it's this emotional roller coaster that they bring you on, and then sometimes they're like pity party, like, you know, I'm like this already, can you just come? And then when you come, they're like, oh, everything's okay. You know, that they just string you along. And then I ask myself, like, I want to be good to them. And I think I want to, but then it hurts me so much. Every single time I agree to give them something, I take away something from myself. And I have kids, right? And I always tell myself that I don't want it to affect my kids because I lived through it. And I think I still am trying to deal with it. And my kids should not have to go through any of it because it's not fair. That's the pain, right? Because
I mean, it is because like it's true, like our parents gave us life, right? I mean, without them we wouldn't exist. But we're also human and we have autonomy over our life. I'm curious to know, like, what is one thing that you felt, or one incident where you felt like you had to give up a little bit, a piece of you in order to, you know, make them happy or help them? Or, I mean, I never reached that point of this relationship with my parents, but like, I mean, there was definitely a point in my life where I would just ignore them, you know, not really ignore, but you know, not speak to them about like what I was doing after school because I just didn't want to have that conversation with them.
And I tell you, Ray, I don't want to have conversations with them. But I mean, when someone is sick, you can't not have these conversations.
Right.
You just
you
can't.
almost feel like responsible as a witness, maybe.
So like, I mean, just yesterday, I was at the house and I'm trying to help my dad apply for this thing he's applying. It's quite a prestigious award. And there I am, you know, trying to do things, and he's struggling. He's really struggling because he can't get his memory together. You know, and I can see that he's struggling. And then meanwhile, my mom tells me like, you know, why did you talk to me like that over WhatsApp yesterday? Like, why? Then I'm like, what did I say? I was just reporting. And then she's like, no, you know, 2 months ago you also said this. Have you all experienced things like that? It's like almost like manipulative, gaslighting. And I was like, where did that come from? And then after that, I was trying to attempt to leave, and then my dad came and like, oh, don't fight with your mom, because she's doing her best to help me, and if you fight with her, I'm going to feel more depressed.
He actually said that.
Yeah, guilt trip, no? Yeah, so I'm like, okay, so what do I do now? Do I stay with him and make him feel better? Do I talk to her nicely in order for him to feel better? Do I shout at her because I want to feel better? Because that is what will make me feel good, right? And that is like, can you just get your act together?
I think that the difficult thing about relationships, or rather the fact about relationships, is a two-way street. You know, like, I mean, I've had times where I find it hard to speak to certain people in my life. I mentioned my parents, right? But over the years, like, I had difficult conversations with them, and I think I'm so blessed, you know, that they are willing to understand my perspective instead of just shut me down. And the same way, I used to shut them down, right? But I'm willing to hear their perspective, even if at the start I'm like, I don't want to listen. So I was wondering if you have been through that stage where you try to speak to them, and did it ever feel like you're just hitting walls?
Yes. I mean, I'll say that it's been so many years, and every time I tell myself, let's try again. Because I learn new strategies. And in fact, the reason why I became a psychologist is because I'm trying to understand why they behave the way they do. And then after going through a year of studies, I realized that I can't change them because they must desire and want the change for themselves. But yet, I'm always put in the position where I have to mediate, I have to take sides, I'm always put in that position, and then I say, okay, never mind, tomorrow's a new day. Talk about being optimistic, right? I say, tomorrow's a new day, I will try. And then I try a new strategy, seems to work for a while, but then it kind of all falls flat. So it's like after a point you ask yourself, should I keep trying? Yeah, so it gets tiring, for sure.
I think what you said that really struck with me is that you can't help someone if they don't want to help themselves. That is so important to remember, because sometimes you almost feel responsible that this person's changed, especially if they are associated with us, like whether it's your kids or your partner or your, you know, maybe best friend or parents. And when you reach that point of like, you know, I can only help you if you want to help yourself, how do you still be that supportive daughter without like mentally giving up? You know what I mean? Because you could go like, you know what, I don't want to help anymore. But that's not what you're doing. You're still there for them. So how do you
I wish it were that
balance-
easy to say just give up lah. You know, I was talking to someone and they said like, Shan, we just cut them off, why not? And I sometimes want to, but then therein lies that conflict again. It's like, are they like that because they are like that they chose to be like that? I think sometimes the pain is that I don't think they chose to be like that. Yeah, and sometimes my mom is like sitting in the car and she's like, you know, picking on everything that's around me. I ask myself, actually, isn't she very lonely? She is. She has nobody in her life to really speak to. And she only has me maybe for once a week. And then it goes into like, okay, maybe I'll just be the good daughter for this 1 hour that she has with me. So it's like this tussle between like, can you just go away? And but then what if I was her? I'm a mom too, right? And I think that's the pain that you feel. It's like, you know that if your child wants time with you, you also want to give that time. But how do you give time to someone who has hurt you so much? I don't know. Sometimes it's very hard. Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah, but I think it's I always think it's part of our journey. And no one does not like experience suffering. We all do. Yeah, and I think sometimes the pain comes from the resistance to the suffering.
Yeah.
That if we fight it, then it becomes even more painful. Or if we start to think that we're all alone, which I do sometimes, then it becomes so much heavier, that burden that you have on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing, Sha-En. You know, just as you were sharing this, I could feel your pain. I could feel your frustration sometimes, and I can imagine how it might feel so taxing, especially when you might have urgent responsibilities, like maybe a client work or a speech coming up, where you need to be at that emotional stage where you can speak confidently on stage, but you know, maybe literally yesterday you're dealing with this.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it comes from experience, like showing up on stage, you practice and you train, and after 12 years of doing what you do, it almost feels natural. But then as a human being, like when you get to certain parts of what you have to say, and it just cuts you right here.
And you feel it at your throat. It's like this kind of like warm feeling, right?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh no, don't cry. Like, don't cry in front of your clients, like, don't cry. But then I think sometimes I think it's okay to share with the people you're talking to, like, you know, it's just been a really hard time. Yeah, and I did in the past 2 months, 3 months, I don't know how I got through every day.
Yeah.
But I go up there and I say like, look, I may be teaching you happiness, but happiness isn't avoiding your emotions. You know, you show up.
You're advocating for your work. You're a living example of what you teach.
Yeah, you try lah. I mean, you tell them like I had a tough time. I may have to answer the call because I don't know if something's going to happen to my dad. I just let them know, so that I give myself the permission not to carry that pressure into that as well, as opposed to like, oh, I'm great, you know, I'm all peachy dandy, like, oh, come ask me all kinds of hard questions, which I can't take anyway, right, at that point.
So as you were sharing, right, I saw a question that comes up that I thought would be perfect for, you know, for you sharing it. It's actually by Chu. So, hi Chu.
So my question is basically, because you were sharing about how you feel like you have to mediate between your parents, and I feel like in my household, I'm constantly the one who is sort of having to watch out for everyone's emotions, and you know, like if you have a family outing, I'm usually the one that's most tense because I'm like, okay, is my mom gonna say something wrong? Is my dad gonna say something wrong? You know, are they gonna like have a fight? Do I have to like explain for them? And so, any advice for someone who like constantly feels like they have to mediate at home, like between my parents, between my brother and my mom, between my mom and her sister, things like that?
Yeah, I would say set up a structure that is helpful. You see, what I do is I used to just allow interaction to happen very freely, which it feels organic and nice, but it means that you do not know when something is going to happen. And I think it's a foreboding feeling. It's like you know that something is going to happen, but you don't know when it's going to drop. That's really scary than it actually happening. And so what I mean by that is like I set it up. For example, if they're coming for dinner, I will prime them before coming. I know it sounds really awkward, but I'll say
How
like,
do you
hey,
find-
we just want to have a great time together tonight. And if it's okay, is it all right to leave whatever quarrel you have at the door? Like, look, it doesn't always really work, but with that in their minds, they do come in a little more prepared. And then if I do see, and there are always some symptoms that something is going to happen, I'll be like, oh, so what's interesting in the whatever topic I think they'll be interested in, a bit of distraction tactic, and that kind of diffuses it a little bit, and then we start eating, and then once we start eating, everyone's a bit quiet, and then I kind of like, okay, the kids need to sleep, like bye. So yeah, I mean it feels very constrained and awkward, but I think it allows me to have the balance of still for them interacting with my children, because the children, they are innocent, they don't really need to be part of this, and me really respecting my own boundaries.
Yeah.
So yeah, structure helps me a lot. Yeah.
That's a really great line that you said about the structure and the frame, because
right.
when you create that sort of like soft expectation, but like it's more of a request, right?
Yes.
At the door, then they come in with that frame in mind.
Yeah, and sometimes they are quite good lah. I will hear it already. The car arrives, and then I hear
Yeah.
it's
And then
happening outside the door.
they come in, they're okay.
And then they're like, hi, and they walk in. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Okay, so the next question I want to take is actually a question that Hakim asked, which is right beside you, which is even better. I think this is a very, very interesting question, a very powerful one. I'm going to wait for the suspense. Because we're going to direct it back to you and I'll help, yeah.
Alright, so I'm Hakim. I teach public speaking, which is actually how I know Ray. But anyway, my question is, how and when did you start parenting yourself? Because you mentioned, just to make sure everyone understands, it's because when you said that there's a lot, you have to mediate a lot, or there's a lot of emotions going on between the generation above you and the generation below you, right? How did you then start parenting yourself and provide yourself with the things that, if I can phrase it this way, maybe your parents never provided you, maybe like emotional security? Were there any like specific steps that you took?
I mean, I still remember the day that, so I have a sister, an elder sister, and I still remember moments where we are both huddled under the blanket because the noise of their quarreling is very loud. And I think we went through that for quite a while, and around the same time I was also experiencing bullying in school, but I think I never told my parents. In fact, my dad the other day remarked, "You mean you were bullied?" It goes to show lah. I mean, because I didn't want to say, I didn't want to add to their burden. So I would say the time that I realized I had to do things for myself, maybe started when I was in secondary 2. Like I had to deal with the consequence of the bullying by myself, although they eventually did find out. But and then when my sister was about 17, 18, 19, around that time, I think she started to spend a lot more time out of the house. And eventually she left. I think
she ran away?
Not say ran away, but she said, no, this is enough for me.
Right.
And she went to live with a friend. And then it was just me.
Oh man.
It was just me, and
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
curious
in
to
the
know, like,
house.
you and your sister seem really close, right?
yeah, we are now,
So-
because we are bonded together in our pain, I think.
But in that
Sadly.
moment when she left, like, how do you feel? That she's leaving you. I'm sure she didn't have the intention, because if I was in that situation, I would probably have left long ago.
No, I mean, I think at the time I felt very lonely. Yeah, and even now as I think back to it, I don't think it's a moment I want to revisit a lot. But I know now, upon looking back, that she had a very, very good reason for doing so, because as the first child, she probably faced a lot more and was aware of a lot more things than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to answer the question, like how do you
parent yourself?
How did I parent
Especially
myself?
when you're in a stage where you feel so lonely and you're bullied.
Yeah,
and
I
you
don't
have no
know.
safe
I mean,
space.
yeah, in my TED Talk, if you go and watch my TED Talk, I talk a little bit about like how I felt at the bottom of the well, and honestly, I felt that nobody would I don't think I could have helped myself, and I was just really blessed to have a great teacher in secondary 3 who reached out to me. I had some good friends who said, like, you shouldn't continue taking this bullying, like, stop hanging out with those people whom you consider your friends. But I didn't know, like, nobody taught me that you're supposed to be taken care of by your friends and not trampled, right? Yeah, but I guess with the help of teachers, and I found better friends, I started to be more discerning about who I'll let into my space, who I hang around with. I played a lot of badminton, so I use badminton as a expression of my frustration, like slap the shuttle all the time. Yeah. And then I went to study psychology because, I was trying to figure out what's going on with me and everything. Yeah, so I did that, I guess, yeah.
Thank you.
Hope that answers your question.
Let's go to Nava's question. Is Nava here? Hi, Nava.
Oh yeah, so my question goes back to, I think at some point you mentioned about how people can't change unless they're willing to, right? So it goes to, where and how do you draw the line to decide how much more you're able to put into your relationships versus at what point do they need to just do that change for themselves?
Yeah, I was talking to my counselor the other day, so I also go for therapy because to me, mental health is self-care. And she asked me the same question, So I said, well, I think I fast forward sometimes to the time where I think my parents are no longer around. And I ask myself, have I done everything that I wanted to do? Not what society says I must do. See, society says you need to be good, be there, be responsive, give them money every month. I mean, all these tropes that we have all heard. But I have to spend a lot of time in my own journey to ask myself, what do I want? What do I believe and value? And I believe and value being a good person, whatever that is. We all have different definitions of it. And so I told my therapist, I said, I would do in so much as being a good human being. But if the cost is too great and I won't feel it in my gut already, then I would draw the line right there and then, and I will not be afraid to communicate it. Not in a mean way, but literally I have to tell my dad the other day, I said, tonight we are going to have a good time and I do not wish to talk about this matter. Yeah. But in another occasion, when I'm feeling more nourished and stable, then I'm willing to listen to you. Yeah, and he was trying to but please, and of course, the heart goes soft. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, but I would just tell myself, well, my heart is mine.
Yeah.
Right? It's mine, it's not someone else's, and I need to be home with my kids and give them the best of me. So that's where I draw the line.
I love that, yeah, because I think when we're holding space and showing compassion to others, it's also very important to do that for yourself. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we asked at the start of the conversation, right, like how many hats do you wear? And you wear many hats. Yeah. And it's a stressful thing, definitely, but it actually gives, in my opinion, I don't know if you feel that way, but maybe a little bit of freedom to know that when you are drawing a boundary for one of the hat, like it makes you able to be more nourished for the other hats.
Yeah,
because you have other relationships to take care of, like your kids, your husband, and they should not, be at the expense of, this other relationship with your parents.
Yeah, exactly. Well. I mean, there are times, I think we have to be realistic. There will be times where you have to spend maybe 70% on one of the hats. My last 3 months is like 70% on that family hat. But if I look back in the past 10 years, maybe it was only 10%, right? So it's not like it happens all the time. But in the middle of February, when it was very close to Chinese New Year and there was a lot of family things going on, I think you all know what that means, lah. A lot of people putting all kinds of opinions on what you should or should not do. And then there was a time when I was having a really busy time with my business, right? And then my 2 team members from Philippines were here. I had to show them around. And I was this 1 week where I really don't know how I got through all of it. But the thing that I always tell myself is when I wear a hat, it's 100% wearing that hat. And not 50% parent hat, 50% daughter hat, 50% sister hat. You know, we try to multi-hat, but when you wear too many hats, you can only see one hat, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you pile them on top, you can only see that one hat. So if I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, and I'll be 100% with them. If I'm there giving a speech, yes, I may tell them that I'm not feeling that great, but I put it away and I put on my speaker hat. If I'm having a meeting with my team members, I'll just do the same thing. And I find that that allows me to move from one hat to the other in a more structured and, you know, more boundary, a safe way for myself. Yeah.
And you know, I want to ask the last few questions, right? And I think it's really apt to ask this, which is when you have to quote unquote compartmentalize, like, or rather give your 100% for like that speech or for your kids, are there any practices that you, like daily habits or practices that you do in order to prime yourself to be at the emotional state where you can give 100%? Because we're not robots, you know. It's not like I can like click myself and go like, okay, forget this and remember this now. Right? But how do we be that 100% when there is so many things clouding our mind?
So I wake up I will make sure I get a good night's rest. I think for me, sleep is really critical. When I have a bad night, like the day doesn't often go very well. But then instead of rushing into the day, I sit down and I literally look at my calendar and think, what are the things that I need to do today? And I don't pack my calendar. I try to have buffer space so that I can make a smooth transition from one thing to another. And then I do like a lot of breathing exercises, and I tell myself, you know, Sha-En, you are going into this, people are here to listen to you, and you're gonna do what you need to do, you know, all your kids are there waiting for you. And I mean, you might think like that's a lot of pressure, but for me that's affirmative. It helps me to get into the zone, it helps me to get into the space, and through the breathing I become very present, and I just focus on my breath.
Focus on your breath.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a simple tip, but for me, it's so powerful as well. Like, I like to just put my hand on my heart and just remember that I can breathe and I have a beating heart. And sometimes, like, when you place your full focus on that, everything else fades away much easier. It really does.
I mean, there's a mantra that I say to myself, you know, you are doing the best that you can with the resources that you have. And we all are. I mean, we all have resources limited here and there, but when we show up, we are doing the best that we can. And I think that self-compassion helps me get through the day as well, because I'm not perfect. We don't have to be perfect and show up perfect. I'm not saying be perfect. I'm saying do what you can in that given moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last question I would like to ask you is this. Looking back on your journey, is there any one thing that you're grateful for every single day that when you just think about it, it makes everything feel much better?
I'm grateful that I made a choice to live the life that's different, that is not what others people want from me. Like, it could be so easy, you know, we talk about that if you experience this kind of upbringing, that you're likely to repeat the cycle. Yeah, and it has taken a damn lot of work, but I'm glad I did not follow the same walk. And I want something different for my children. I want something different for myself. Yeah, I'm grateful.
And what I see is like doing that different path, taking a different path is in the consistent daily work that you do, right? The meditation or the priming, the affirmations, choosing to draw the boundary and create the frame when you need to, so that you can give yourself that space every single day. Because unfortunately, if we don't do that, when we reach a breaking point, we just erupt, we just break. But it's the effort every single day that we give ourselves that love to fill our own cup before we can fill the cup of others.
Yeah, you know, the other day I was, so every Monday I'm on the radio station, 913 in the morning. And that day I was there, and also it was such a difficult morning for me. And then the DJs asked me like, you know, if your dad's not well, like, why are you here? And I said, I'm here because I want to be here. I'm here because this brings me joy. I'm here because you girls are so great. I'm here because this fills my cup. And I could look at it the other way, like this is an obligation I need to I fulfill, and I must rush to my dad. But I did not need to rush to him. He was not in a major accident. But I think sometimes we feel that way. It's like someone called very kanchong, let's go. And then you give up something that you love, and the message you're sending yourself is deny yourself, serve someone else. But can't we serve ourselves first? And so I felt so good that when I went over to help my dad, I felt I'm okay, I'm good to be here. Yeah.
Sha-En, I want to say, I think all of us, like we really, speaking for everyone else, but we thank you for just being so vulnerable and sharing with us, like truly peeling back the layers, sharing with us what you're going through at home that I think we don't see on stage, right? I think the reality, not yet, but you know, please follow Sha-En on LinkedIn. She writes really, really powerful LinkedIn stories on LinkedIn. And I think as I read her stories on LinkedIn, it reminds me that no matter how cool she looks, like she's human too, right? And that just means that no matter how terrible I might feel at certain moments in my life, like I too can overcome and I too can lean on support. There are people that get it. We're not alone in this journey.
Definitely not.
Thank you so much,
so many
Sha-En,
of
for
us
sharing your
today.
journey.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye. Sha-En's gonna go back to her kids now.
Bye, everyone.
Oh my gosh. Okay.